Document. Part 1. The vast emptiness of space stretched endlessly, dotted with stars that twinkled faintly like tiny lanterns, hung in an infinite void. Among these celestial bodies, a fleet of massive warships moved with purpose, their sleek, metallic hulls glinting under the light of a distant sun. These ships belonged to the Zetharian Dominion, an empire known across galaxies for its unrelenting conquests and unmatched military strength. For centuries, they had swept through star systems, crushing resistance wherever it arose. Their reputation was one of terror, their name whispered with fear on countless worlds. On this day, however, their target was different. It was not another advanced civilization or a sprawling interstellar kingdom, but a small blue-green planet, nestled in a quiet corner of the Milky Way. Earth, to the Zetharians, Earth was nothing more than a speck on their galactic map, a primitive world unworthy of serious consideration. They had studied it briefly, dismissing its inhabitants as weak and disorganized. After all, what threat could such beings pose to the mighty Dominion? The decision to invade was made almost casually, as if sending troops to conquer Earth was no more significant than swatting a fly. Back on Earth, life went on as usual. In Chicago, Jake leaned back in his chair, sipping coffee while scrolling through news headlines on his tablet. His apartment was modest but cozy, filled with books and gadgets scattered across shelves. Across from him sat Lisa, her feet propped up on the coffee table as she flipped through channels on the TV. Outside, cars honked impatiently, and people hurried along sidewalks, oblivious to the storm brewing light years away. "Hey, check this out," Jake said suddenly, tapping his screen. "Some alien empire just sent ships toward Earth." Lisa raised an eyebrow, barely glancing at him. "Aliens? Seriously, you've been watching too many movies." "No, I'm serious." Jake turned the tablet toward her, showing a blurry image of the approaching fleet captured by deep space telescopes. Beneath the picture, bold letters screamed, *Zetharian Dominion declares intent to conquer Earth. Lisa squinted at the screen, before breaking into laughter. "You're kidding, right?" she said between giggles. "What are they gonna do? Zap us with laser pointers?" Jake shrugged, unable to suppress a grin himself. "I don't know. Maybe. But apparently, they think we're easy pickings." The story quickly spread online, sparking reactions ranging from amusement to mild curiosity. Memes mocking the invaders flooded social media platforms. One popular image depicted a cartoon alien holding a sign that read, "We come in peace. Unless you resist." Another showed a group of humans armed with water balloons standing defiantly against a fleet of menacing spaceships. Comment sections buzzed with jokes and sarcastic remarks. "They're probably here because they ran out of snacks," someone quipped beneath a video clip of the incoming ships. "Don't forget to bring your own toilet paper," another replied, referencing humanity's infamous supply chain issues during past crises. Even news anchors struggled to keep straight faces as they reported on the situation. On one channel, a reporter tried to maintain professionalism while describing the ultimatum: surrender immediately or face annihilation. Behind him, footage showed panicked crowds gathering outside government buildings. Yet elsewhere, scenes of calm and even humor prevailed. In New York City, street performers dressed as aliens entertained passersby, pretending to abduct tourists for tips. In Los Angeles, a local radio station hosted a contest inviting listeners to record their best alien impressions for a chance to win concert tickets. Despite the lightheartedness, there were those who took the threat seriously. Governments scrambled to prepare defenses, though many doubted the effectiveness of traditional militaries against extraterrestrial technology. Private companies, however, saw an opportunity. Tech firms raced to deploy experimental weapons systems, while startups offered bounties for innovative solutions to repel the invaders. Universities opened their labs to students eager to contribute, fostering a wave of grassroots innovation In Silicon Valley, Ethan stared intently at rows of monitors, displaying complex algorithms and schematics, a reclusive hacker with a penchant for robotics. He had spent years developing autonomous drones capable of adapting to any environment. Now, he worked feverishly to modify them for combat purposes. Nearby, stacks of empty energy drink cans littered his desk, evidence of long nights fueled by caffeine and determination. Meanwhile, in rural Texas, Ben stood in his barn, tinkering with a peculiar device mounted on the front of his tractor. Originally designed to harvest crops using concentrated laser beams, the machine now sported reinforced armor plating and upgraded targeting sensors. Though far from glamorous, Ben believed, his invention might give humanity an edge in the coming conflict. As he tightened a bolt, he muttered to himself, "If those aliens want a fight, they'll get one." Across the country, others prepared in their own ways. In Alaska, Olivia, retired physicist with a knack for theoretical physics, activated a prototype gravity manipulator buried beneath her cabin. The device hummed softly as it powered up, ready to distort spacetime itself if needed. In Florida, a teenager named Ryan practiced controlling his neural-linked drone swarm, imagining how they might outmaneuver sluggish alien soldiers. And in Washington, D.C., General Harker reviewed strategic plans submitted by civilians, marveling at the creativity displayed by ordinary people. As the Zitharian fleet drew closer, anticipation grew. Many wondered how humanity would respond when faced with overwhelming odds. Would the same ingenuity that built skyscrapers and cured diseases rise to meet the challenge? Or would Earth fall prey to arrogance, assuming its superiority without truly understanding the enemy? For now, the mood remained cautiously optimistic. Jokes continued to circulate, memes multiplied, and preparations accelerated. Humanity had always thrived under pressure, turning obstacles into opportunities. Perhaps this invasion would prove no different. Unbeknownst to everyone, the Zitharians watched these developments with growing confusion. Their intelligence reports described Earth as fragmented and chaotic. Yet the behavior of its inhabitants suggested otherwise. Instead of cowering in fear, humans mocked them openly. Rather than begging for mercy, they devised clever strategies and shared ideas freely. Even as the first wave of troops prepared to land, doubts began creeping into the minds of Zitharian commanders. Could this insignificant planet really pose a threat? Little did they know, the answer was about to become painfully clear. Document Part 2. The Zitharian warships descended through Earth's atmosphere like burning meteors, their sleek forms cutting through the sky with an eerie grace. The ground trembled as they hovered above New York City, casting long shadows over the bustling streets below. For a moment, everything seemed to freeze. Cars screeched to a halt, pedestrians stared upward in awe, and birds scattered into the air, fleeing the unnatural presence looming overhead. It was a sight both terrifying and mesmerizing, a glimpse of something far beyond human comprehension. Commander Vrack stood at the helm of the lead ship, his towering figure clad in shimmering blue armor that reflected the faint glow of the control room lights. His sharp eyes scanned the holographic display before him, analyzing data streaming in from reconnaissance drones. To him, Earth appeared chaotic and disorganized, its cities sprawling without clear purpose, its people moving like ants in unpredictable patterns. He sneered slightly, confident that this mission would be swift and decisive. After all, how could such primitive beings resist the might of the Zitharian dominion? On the ground, however, things were not so simple. As soon as the alien ships touched down, a group of teenagers armed with remote-controlled drones zipped into action. Ryan, a lanky high schooler with a mop of unruly hair, grinned as he guided his fleet of small, agile machines toward the invaders. Each drone buzzed loudly, darting around the bewildered Zitharian soldiers who emerged from their vessels. At first, the aliens didn't know what to make of these tiny mechanical nuisances. Some tried swatting them away, while others raised their energy rifles, firing bright beams of light that missed entirely. "Gotcha," Ryan exclaimed, watching one of his drones drop a paintball onto the helmet of an alien soldier. The glob splattered across the visor, temporarily obscuring the creature's vision. Laughter erupted from nearby spectators who had gathered behind makeshift barricades, recording the scene on their phones. Someone shouted encouragement, while another person live-streamed the event to thousands of viewers online. For many, it felt less like a battle and more like a bizarre game one, where humanity held all the cards. Jake and Lisa watched the chaos unfold on their screens back in Chicago. News outlets broadcasted footage of the confrontation nonstop, showing close-ups of bewildered aliens trying to fend off relentless drone attacks. Jake shook his head, chuckling softly. "I can't believe this is actually happening." Lisa leaned closer, her eyes glued to the TV. "Look at them. They're totally clueless." She pointed at a clip of an alien slipping on a banana peel someone had tossed onto the battlefield. Who even thought to bring fruit into a fight? But amidst the humor, there was also strategy. The drones weren't just annoying distractions. They served a larger purpose. Equipped with sensors and cameras, they relayed real-time information about the Zetharians' movements and weapons back to central command hubs. These hubs, run by tech-savvy civilians like Ethan, processed the data and distributed tactical advice to local resistance groups. In a matter of hours, ordinary people had transformed themselves into a decentralized army, united by shared goals and cutting-edge technology. Ethan sat hunched over his monitors, typing furiously as streams of data flooded in. Lines of code scrolled across multiple screens, each representing a different aspect of the ongoing skirmish. His fingers flew across the keyboard, adjusting drone formations and rerouting resources to areas under heavy pressure. Despite his exhaustion, he couldn't help but feel a thrill of excitement. This wasn't just about defending Earth. It was about proving what humans were capable of when pushed to their limits. Across the country, similar efforts were underway. In Texas, Ben revved the engine of his modified tractor, ready to test its new capabilities. The laser harvester mounted on its front glowed faintly, humming with pent-up energy. He adjusted his cowboy hat and muttered, "Let's see if you boys are tougher than tumbleweeds." With a roar, the machine surged forward, heading straight for a detachment of Zetharian troops advancing along a dusty highway. The aliens paused, unsure how to react to the strange contraption bearing down on them. Their leader barked orders, but it was too late. Ben activated the laser, slicing cleanly through the legs of a robotic walker accompanying the squad. Metal debris clattered to the ground as the machine toppled over, pinning several soldiers beneath its weight. Cheers erupted from nearby townsfolk, who had come out to support Ben, waving flags and honking car horns in celebration. Meanwhile, in Alaska, Olivia monitored the readings from her gravity manipulator. So far, she had kept the device offline, wary of causing unintended damage. But as reports poured in about increasing Zetharian aggression, she decided it was time to act. With a deep breath, she flipped the activation switch. A low hum filled the air, growing louder as the machine began altering the gravitational field around her cabin. Outside, snowflakes floated lazily upward, defying natural laws. Curious and, perhaps, reckless Olivia stepped outside to observe the effects. She spotted a squadron of alien hovercraft attempting to flank a group of human defenders stationed nearby. With a flick of a dial, she intensified the gravity distortion, pulling the vehicles downward with crushing force. One by one, they crashed into the icy terrain, immobilized and useless. The defenders cheered, shouting her name as they regrouped and pressed their advantage. Back in Washington, D.C., General Harker reviewed updates from various fronts, impressed by the ingenuity displayed by ordinary citizens. He turned to Clara, his assistant, who was busy compiling reports from field operatives. "You know," he said, leaning back in his chair, I've been in the military for decades, and I've never seen anything like this. Clara nodded, her expression thoughtful. It's amazing, isn't it? People aren't waiting for orders there, taking matters into their own hands. And why shouldn't they? Harker replied, a hint of pride in his voice. When push comes to shove, humans don't break. We adapt, we innovate. And right now, we're showing those aliens exactly what we're made of. As night fell, the fighting continued unabated. Fires burned in the distance, illuminating smoke-filled skies. Yet despite the destruction, there was an undeniable sense of unity among humanity. Strangers worked together, sharing tools and ideas. Families opened their homes to displaced neighbors. Even rival corporations set aside differences to collaborate on defense projects in Silicon Valley. Ethan received a message from a young programmer named Mia, who had developed a virus capable of disabling Zetharian communication systems. Together, they integrated her code into the autonomous drone network, ensuring that every attack disrupted not only enemy forces, but also their ability to coordinate. Elsewhere, a team of engineers repurposed old satellites to create a global surveillance grid, tracking the invaders' every move. For Commander Vrax, the situation grew increasingly frustrating. What should have been a routine operation had spiraled out of control. Every attempt to assert dominance was met with clever countermeasures. Every strike was anticipated and neutralized. Even worse, the humans seemed to take delight in their resistance, mocking the Zetharians at every turn. Vrax clenched his fists, vowing to restore order no matter the cost. Unbeknownst to him, humanity's greatest weapon lay not in its technology or tactics, but in its spirit. For centuries, humans had faced challenges that seemed insurmountable: wars, plagues, natural disasters, and yet they had always found a way to persevere. Now, confronted with an existential threat unlike any other, they rose to the occasion. Once again, united by a common cause, driven by creativity and determination, they proved that Earth was not a planet to be conquered easily. And so, as dawn broke over the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink, the stage was set for the next phase of the conflict. The Zetharians had underestimated their opponents, dismissing them as weak and disorganized. But as the sun rose higher, casting its light upon the resilient faces of men, women, and children, standing firm against overwhelming odds, it became clear that humanity was far from defeated. If anything, the battle had only just begun. Document Part 3. The sun climbed higher in the sky, casting long shadows over the battlefield. The Zetharian forces, still reeling from the unexpected resistance, regrouped near the outskirts of New York City. Commander Vrax paced back and forth inside his command tent, his armored boots clicking against the metallic floor. His usually calm demeanor was cracking under the weight of frustration. Never before had he encountered such defiance from a supposedly primitive species. He clenched his jaw as he studied the holographic map floating above the table, showing clusters of human activities surrounding their position. "They're mocking us," Vrax growled, turning to his second-in-command. "Krelt, this isn't war, it's humiliation." Krelt nodded hesitantly, his yellow eyes flickering with unease. "Their tactics are unconventional, sir. They don't fight like soldiers. They adapt too quickly." "Adapt." Vrax spat the word, as if it were an insult. "They're children playing with toys. How can they possibly stand against the might of the Dominion?" Krelt didn't answer. Instead, he glanced at the screen, displaying footage of Ryan's drones zipping around his troops, dropping paintballs and releasing smoke bombs that obscured their vision. The humans weren't just fighting, they were having fun. Laughter echoed through the recordings, along with cheers from crowds watching the chaos unfold. To the Zetharians, this behavior was incomprehensible. War was supposed to be serious, methodical, and terrifying. Yet here they were, facing opponents who treated the invasion like some kind of bizarre sport. Back in Chicago, Jake and Lisa sat glued to their screens, unable to look away from the live feed of the battle. The camera panned across the scene, capturing moments of absurdity mixed with bursts of brilliance. A group of teenagers armed with water guns, filled with sticky syrup, ambushed a patrol of Zetherian scouts, leaving them immobilized as they struggled to free themselves from the gooey mess. Nearby, a man in a wheelchair used a remote control to steer a robotic lawnmower straight into the path of an alien vehicle, causing it to swerve wildly and crash into a lamppost. "This is insane," Lisa said, shaking her head. "I mean, I get that we're winning, but seriously? A lawnmower?" Jake shrugged, grinning despite himself. "Hey, whatever works, right? These guys aren't giving up without a fight hand. Neither are we." Meanwhile, Ethan continued to coordinate drone operations from his makeshift headquarters in Silicon Valley. His fingers danced across the keyboard as he adjusted flight paths, ensuring that every machine stayed out of range of enemy fire. Despite the constant stream of data flooding his monitors, he couldn't help but notice something remarkable about the humans' response. It wasn't just about technology or strategy. It was about creativity. People were using whatever they had at hand, tools, gadgets, even household items to turn the tide of the battle. In Texas, Ben revved the engine of his tractor again, ready for another pass. This time, he aimed for a cluster of alien supply crates stacked near the edge of the highway. The laser harvester hummed louder as he activated it, slicing cleanly through the metal containers. Contents spilled onto the ground: food rations, medical supplies, and ammunition, all rendered useless by the precision of his improvised weapon. Cheers erupted from a nearby crowd of onlookers, many of whom had brought coolers full of snacks to share while they watched the spectacle. "You're a legend, Ben," someone shouted, raising a soda can in salute. Ben tipped his hat, flashing a grin. "Just doing my part, folks. Now let's see if these boys have any more tricks up their sleeves." Farther north, in Alaska, Olivia monitored the effects of her gravity manipulator with growing confidence. After disabling several hovercraft, she decided to push the limits of her invention. Adjusting the settings, she created localized zones of intense gravity, pulling alien soldiers off their feet and pinning them to the ground. Some struggled to move, their heavy armor weighing them down even further, while others simply gave up, lying flat as if waiting for the ordeal to end. The defenders nearby took advantage of the situation, moving in to disarm the immobilized invaders. One young woman, no older than 20, approached cautiously, holding a taser rigged to deliver a powerful electric shock. She tapped an alien soldier on the shoulder and pressed the trigger, sending him twitching to the ground. Her teammates erupted in applause, slapping her on the back as she grinned triumphantly. Across the globe, similar scenes played out. In Los Angeles, a group of artists repurposed their studio equipment to create flamethrowers powered by industrial-grade propane tanks. They marched down Hollywood Boulevard, setting fire to abandoned cars and debris to block the advance of reinforcements. In Florida, a retired firefighter named Carl used his old hose truck to spray foam insulation onto alien vehicles, clogging their engines and rendering them useless. Even children joined the effort, pelting invaders with water balloons filled with glitter and food dye, making it nearly impossible for the aliens to see through their visors. As the hours passed, the Zetherians grew increasingly desperate. Their attempts to retaliate only made things worse. Energy blasts meant to destroy the drones missed their targets entirely, striking buildings and streets instead. Civilians cheered when one particularly elamed shot demolished a billboard advertising fast food, replacing the slogan "Taste the Future" with a gaping hole. Someone quickly edited the image online, adding text that read, "Thanks for the upgrade." Commander Vrax seethed with anger as he watched the reports come in. Every plan he devised was countered effortlessly, every attack met with ridicule. He slammed his fist against the table, denting the surface. Enough of this nonsense. Deploy the plasma cannons. Krelt hesitated, glancing at the commander. Nervously. Sir, the plasma cannons require precise calibration. If we use them here, I don't care. Vrax interrupted, his voice rising. We need to crush them now, before they gain any more momentum. Reluctantly, Krelt relayed the order. Moments later, massive weapons mounted on the sides of the Cytherian ships began charging, emitting a low whine that could be heard for miles. The humans noticed immediately, their laughter fading as they realized the stakes were about to escalate. General, Harker leaned forward in his chair, staring intently at the screen, showing the incoming threat. Clara stood beside him, her face pale. They're going to level the city, she whispered. Harker nodded grimly. Not if we can help it. He grabbed the comms device and began issuing rapid-fire instructions. Across the country, civilians sprang into action. Ethan directed his drones to swarm the plasma cannons, attempting to disrupt their targeting systems. Ben revved his tractor once more, aiming for the nearest weapon emplacement. Olivia cranked up her gravity manipulator to maximum power, hoping to destabilize the massive guns before they could fire. But perhaps the most surprising response came from an unlikely source. In Seattle, Samantha, brilliant strategist, known for her work in cybersecurity, activated Project Sentinel, a network of autonomous defense satellites, originally designed to protect Earth from asteroid impacts. Using quantum communication links, she rerouted their programming to intercept the plasma cannon's energy beams. As the weapons fired, arcs of blue light streaked toward the city, but, instead of reaching their targets, they were absorbed by invisible shields generated by the satellites. The crowd below erupted in cheers, waving flags and chanting slogans. Onlookers hugged strangers, tears streaming down their faces as they realized they had been saved. For a moment, it felt like the entire planet held its breath. United in awe and gratitude, Commander Vrax stared at the scene in disbelief. His best weapons had failed. His elite forces were being dismantled by amateurs armed with little more than ingenuity and determination. Slowly, realization dawned on him. Earth was not the easy conquest he had anticipated. The humans were resourceful, resilient, and utterly fearless in the face of overwhelming odds. For the first time in his career, Vrax felt doubt creeping into his mind. Perhaps the Dominion had underestimated its opponent. Perhaps this invasion would not go as planned after all. Document. Part 4. The battlefield was quiet for a moment. The kind of silence that comes after a storm has passed, but before the next wave hits. The Cytherian plasma cannons lay useless, their energy drained by Samantha's hastily repurposed satellites. Smoke curled lazily into the sky from smoldering wreckage, and the streets were littered with Debrelian equipment, broken drones, and the remnants of human improvisation. For the first time since the invasion began, the invaders seemed unsure of what to do next. Commander Vrax stood frozen in his command tent, staring at the holographic display showing the failed attack. His face was unreadable behind his helmet, but his clenched fists betrayed his frustration. Around him, his officers whispered nervously, exchanging glances as if waiting for someone else to speak first. No one wanted to be the bearer of bad news. "Explain this to me," Vrax finally said, his voice low and dangerous. He pointed at the screen, where glowing red markers indicated the locations of disabled weapons systems. "How did they neutralize our plasma cannons?" Krelt stepped forward hesitantly, his antennae twitching with anxiety. "Sir, it appears they used orbital satellites to intercept the energy beams. It's unprecedented." "Unprecedented," Vrax snapped, turning on him. "You mean impossible? Satellites are not designed for combat. They're tools for observation, communication, not warfare." Krelt swallowed hard. "Yes, sir. But these humans, they adapt quickly. They've turned everything they have into weapons." Vrax paced back and forth, his mind racing. This wasn't supposed to happen. Earth was meant to fall within hours, its people too primitive and disorganized to mount any real resistance. Yet here they were, laughing at his forces, countering every move with clever tricks and unexpected innovations. He stopped abruptly, gripping the edge of the table so tightly that his metallic gauntlets left dents in the surface. "We need to change tactics," he growled. "No more holding back. If they want to fight, we'll give them one they won't forget." Back on Earth, the mood was jubilant. News of the thwarted plasma cannon attack spread like wildfire, sparking celebrations across the globe. Social media exploded with memes and videos capturing the moment the alien weapons fizzled out harmlessly. One popular clip showed a toddler pointing at the sky and shouting, "Ha! Nice try, space dudes," while her parents laughed in the background. Another featured a teenager holding up a sign that read, *plasma. More like placebo. In Chicago. Jake leaned back in his chair, grinning as he scrolled through the endless stream of reactions. "Can you believe this?" he asked Lisa, who was busy texting updates to friends. "We just took down their big guns, without even firing a shot." Lisa smirked, looking up briefly. "Yeah, but don't get too cocky. You know those aliens aren't done yet." She was right. Despite the victory, tensions remained high. General Harker addressed the nation in a live broadcast, urging citizens to stay vigilant. "This is far from over," he warned, his tone serious despite the optimism surrounding him. "The Zetherians are still out there, and they'll come at us harder now. We've shown them what we're capable of, but we can't let our guard down." His words resonated deeply with Ethan, who sat alone in his dimly lit workspace, surrounded by monitors displaying real-time data. The young hacker knew better than anyone how fragile their defenses were. While humanity had managed to hold its own so far, the Zetherians had barely tapped into their arsenal. There would be more attacks, and they would be deadlier. Ethan stretched, rubbing his tired eyes. He hadn't slept in nearly 2 days, fueled instead by adrenaline and countless cups of coffee. Every muscle in his body ached, but he couldn't afford to rest, not when millions of lives depended on his work. He glanced at the clock on the wall, then back at the screen. Somewhere out there, the enemy was regrouping, planning their next move, and Ethan needed to stay one step ahead. Across the country, preparations continued. In Texas, Ben checked the fuel levels on his tractor, making sure it was ready for another round. Nearby, volunteers worked tirelessly to repair damaged drones and reinforce makeshift barricades. Children ran around carrying toy blasters, pretending to fend off invisible aliens, while adults shared stories of close calls and narrow escapes. The community had come together in ways no one could have predicted, united by a common purpose. Ben paused for a moment, leaning against his machine and watching the scene unfold. A group of teenagers nearby were testing modifications to their remote-controlled cars, equipping them with small explosives rigged to detonate on impact. One of them waved at him enthusiastically, holding up a car painted bright orange with crude flames drawn along the sides. "What do you think, Ben?" the boy called out. "Think this'll scare Em?" Ben chuckled, tipping his hat. "If nothing else, it'll make Em laugh." But humor aside, the gravity of the situation weighed heavily on everyone. Even as they celebrated their successes, they knew the cost of failure. In Alaska, Olivia monitored her gravity manipulator closely, ensuring it remained stable under increased strain. She had pushed the device beyond its intended limits, and though it held steady for now, she worried about what might happen if the Zetherians launched another large-scale assault. "They're desperate," she muttered to herself, adjusting dials on the control panel. "And desperate enemies are unpredictable." Her thoughts were interrupted by a knock at the door. Stepping outside, she found a group of neighbors offering supplies, a generator, extra wiring, and a thermos of hot soup. Their kindness brought tears to her eyes, reminding her why she was doing this. Humanity wasn't fighting just to survive. It was fighting to protect the bonds that made life worth living. Meanwhile, in Seattle, Samantha coordinated efforts to expand Project Sentinel's capabilities. Her team of volunteer programmers worked around the clock, writing code and running simulations to anticipate the Zetharians' next moves. Each satellite added to the network increased their defensive coverage, but maintaining synchronization required constant adjustments. Samantha moved between workstations, offering guidance and encouragement, her focus unwavering. "You're doing great," she told a young coder named Mia, who had been instrumental in developing the energy absorption algorithms. "Keep pushing. We need every advantage we can get." Mia nodded, her fingers flying across the keyboard. "What happens if they send something bigger? Something we can't stop?" Samantha hesitated, choosing her words carefully. "Then we improvise. That's what we do best." As night fell, the Zetharians prepared for their next offensive. Commander Vrax gathered his top officers, laying out a new strategy. Instead of relying solely on brute force, they would target key infrastructure grids, communication hubs, and supply lines by crippling humanity's ability to coordinate. They hoped to regain the upper hand. "This planet may be resourceful," Vrax declared, his voice cold and determined, "but it is also fragile. Hit them where it hurts, and they will crumble." The plan was set in motion under cover of darkness. Stealth shuttles descended silently, deploying squads of elite soldiers equipped with advanced cloaking devices. Their mission was simple: infiltrate major cities and sabotage critical systems. For the first time since the invasion began, the humans were caught off guard. In New York City, alarms blared as power stations went offline one by one. Streetlights flickered and died, plunging neighborhoods into darkness. Panic spread quickly, with people rushing to secure shelter or gather emergency supplies. The Zetharians moved swiftly, their forms shimmering faintly as they slipped past. Bewildered defenders. Ryan noticed the disruption immediately. His drones, which relied on GPS signals to navigate, began losing connection. Frantically, he tried to recalibrate them using manual controls, but the delay gave the invaders precious time to advance. Frustration boiled inside him as he watched helplessly. "They're hitting us where we're weakest," Ryan muttered, slamming his fist against the table. "We need backup." Word reached General Harker almost instantly. From his command center, he issued orders to mobilize reserve units and deploy portable generators to restore power. Civilians responded with equal urgency, setting up makeshift lighting systems using car headlights and battery-powered lanterns. Even in the chaos, humanity refused to falter. The battle raged on throughout the night, ebbing and flowing like waves crashing against a shore. The Zetharians pressed their advantage, striking hard and fast, but the humans adapted once again. In Los Angeles, a group of engineers rerouted electricity through underground cables, bypassing damaged substations. In Florida, volunteers used solar panels to power emergency transmitters, keeping communication lines open. By morning, the tide had turned yet again. Exhausted but resolute, the defenders pushed back against the invaders, reclaiming lost ground inch by inch. Commander Vrax watched grimly as his forces retreated, their cloaking devices failing under relentless counterattacks. For the first time, doubt crept into his mind, not just about the outcome of this invasion, but about the very nature of the species he faced. Humans weren't just surviving, they were thriving under pressure. Their resilience, creativity, and sheer determination made them unlike any foe the Zetharians had ever encountered. And as the sun rose over a battered but unbroken earth, one thing became clear: this war was far from over, but humanity had proven it could hold its own. Document Part 5. The sun rose slowly over the horizon, casting a golden glow across the battered landscape. Smoke still hung in the air, mingling with the scent of scorched metal and damp earth. The night had been long and grueling, but as dawn broke, humanity found itself standing firm once again. The Zetherians' attempt to cripple Earth's infrastructure had failed, their sabotage efforts thwarted by quick thinking and sheer determination. Yet everyone knew this was only a temporary reprieve. The invaders would regroup, rearm, and strike again, and when they did, the stakes would be higher than ever. Commander Vrax stood on the bridge of his flagship, staring out at the planet below. His sharp features were etched with frustration, his glowing blue skin pale under the dim red light of the control room. He had underestimated these humans, and now he was paying the price. Every plan he devised was countered effortlessly, every weapon neutralized or turned against him. It was as if the planet itself conspired to defy him. "They're mocking us," Vrax muttered, clenching his fists. "Every time we strike, they laugh. Every time we falter, they cheer." Krelt shifted uncomfortably beside him, unsure how to respond. The second-in-command had seen countless battles, but none like this. On other worlds, fear had been their greatest ally, populations cowering in terror, surrendering without a fight. But here, the humans seemed almost amused. Their laughter echoed through intercepted transmissions, their defiance shining brighter than any weapon. "We need to escalate," Vrax said finally, his voice cold and resolute. "No more half measures. Deploy the obliterator cannon." Krelt froze, his antennae twitching in alarm. "Sir, the obliterator cannon is designed for total annihilation. Using it here risks collateral damage beyond our objectives." Vrax turned sharply, his eyes blazing with fury. "Our objective is victory, Krelt. If that means leveling cities, so be it. These humans must understand the price of resisting the Dominion." Reluctantly, Krelt relayed the order. Deep within the belly of the flagship, technicians scrambled to activate the massive weapon. The obliterator cannon hummed to life, its core glowing with an ominous energy that pulsed like a heartbeat. When fired, it would unleash a beam capable of vaporizing entire metropolitan areas in seconds. For the first time since the invasion began, the Zetherians felt a flicker of hope. Surely this would break the human spirit. On Earth, news of the impending attack spread quickly. Satellites detected the energy buildup aboard the Zetherian ships, and analysts warned that the weapon posed an existential threat. General Harker convened an emergency meeting, gathering top strategists and civilian leaders to discuss countermeasures. The mood in the room was tense, the weight of responsibility pressing down on everyone present. "We can't let them fire that thing," Clara said, her voice steady, despite the fear in her eyes. "If they hit a major city, millions will die." Harker nodded grimly. "Agreed. But how do we stop it? Those ships are too heavily shielded for conventional weapons to penetrate." Samantha leaned forward, her fingers tapping nervously on the table. "We might not be able to destroy the cannon directly, but we can disable it indirectly. If we target the power source, or disrupt the firing sequence, we might buy ourselves enough time to neutralize the threat." Ethan chimed in from his remote location, his face appearing on a video screen. "I've got a fleet of stealth drones ready to deploy. They're small, fast, and equipped with EMP charges. If we can get close enough, we could fry their systems before they have a chance to fire." Harker considered the plan, then gave a sharp nod. "Do it, and make sure you coordinate with Samantha's team. We'll need those satellites to cover your approach." In Silicon Valley, Ethan worked feverishly, fine-tuning the programming of his autonomous drones. Rows of sleek machines lined the walls of his workshop, each one armed with electromagnetic pulse devices capable of short-circuiting advanced technology. He glanced at the clock, his heart pounding as he realized time was running out. Outside, volunteers loaded the drones onto transport vehicles, preparing to launch them into orbit. "You ready for this?" Mia asked, joining him at the workstation. Her hair was tied back in a messy ponytail, dark circles underlining her weary eyes. She had been working non-stop alongside Ethan, coding algorithms and troubleshooting glitches. "As ready as I'll ever be," Ethan replied, forcing a smile. Just keep your fingers crossed, okay? Mia nodded, giving his shoulder a reassuring squeeze. You've got this. We all do. Meanwhile, in Seattle, Samantha coordinated with Project Sentinel's network of satellites. Her team monitored the Zetharian flagship closely, tracking the energy surges emanating from the obliterator cannon. With precise calculations, they adjusted the satellite's trajectories, positioning them to intercept the weapons beam if necessary. Though risky, the maneuver might buy Ethan's drones enough time to reach their target. Satellite Delta is in position, one technician reported, his voice crackling over the comms system, awaiting further instructions. Sammy double-checked the data on her screen, her hands trembling slightly as she entered the final commands. Hold steady, she instructed. We wait for Ethan's signal before making our move. The countdown to the obliterator cannon's activation ticked closer to 0. Ethan launched his drone fleet. Dozens of tiny machines streaked toward the Zetharian flagship, their movements synchronized and precise. Invisible to radar, they slipped past the ship's defenses, homing in on the weapon's power core. Inside the control room, Ethan watched the live feed, his breath catching in his throat as the drones neared their destination. Almost there, he whispered, his knuckles white as he gripped the edge of the desk. Come on. Suddenly, alarms blared aboard the flagship. The Zetharians detected the intrusion just moments before impact. Technicians scrambled to activate countermeasures, deploying anti-drone turrets to intercept the swarm, but it was too late. One by one, Ethan's drones detonated their EMP charges, sending cascading waves of electromagnetic energy through the ship's systems. Lights flickered, consoles sparked, and the obliterator cannon's core sputtered, its charge dissipating harmlessly into space. Yes, Ethan shouted, slamming his fist triumphantly on the desk. Around him, volunteers erupted in cheers, hugging each other and shouting in relief. For the second time in as many days, humanity had turned the tide of battle. The failure of the obliterator cannon sent shockwaves through the Zetharian ranks. Commander Vrax stared in disbelief as reports flooded in, detailing the destruction of his prized weapon. His jaw tightened, veins bulging in his temples as he processed the implications. Not only had the humans managed to disable the cannon, but they had done so using technology far simpler than anything the Dominion possessed. It was humiliating, a stark reminder of how thoroughly they had underestimated their opponent. Approached cautiously, his antennae drooping with apprehension. Sir, the cannon is offline. Repairs will take hours, possibly days. Vrax didn't respond immediately. Instead, he turned to gaze out at the planet below, his expression unreadable. For the first time, doubt crept into his mind, not just about the feasibility of conquering Earth, but about the very nature of the species he faced. These humans weren't primitive. They were ingenious, resourceful, and utterly fearless. They fought not with brute strength, but with creativity and unity. And no matter how many times he struck, they refused to yield. What are your orders, sir? Krelt pressed gently, breaking the silence. Vrax exhaled slowly, his voice barely above a whisper. Regroup, fortify our positions, and prepare for the worst. This war is far from over. Back on Earth, celebrations erupted once again. Social media lit up with videos of Ethan's drones disabling the obliterator cannon, accompanied by captions like EMP, greater than pew pew, and stealth mode activated. In Chicago, Jake and Lisa cheered, along with the rest of the world, raising imaginary glasses in a toast to humanity's ingenuity, to teamwork, Lisa said with a grin, and to never giving up, Jake added, clinking his coffee mug against hers. But even amid the jubilation, there was a sobering awareness that the fight was far from finished. The Zetharians were wounded, but not defeated, and as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the battlefield, humanity braced itself for whatever came next.